with the stuff I see you're doing, just in a broader context, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there, because I feel this way, and I'm sure they do, that you want them to just publicly expose their hypocrisy. When you see that person out pretending to be, supporting of left-wing causes or whatever, and they're hypocrites, they're lying, you want the world to be able to see those lies. And so what I see with your content, and again, it's nothing to do with you, it's the people responding to you, they espouse values that they then do not uphold. And each and every one of these people who comments and says things like, you're not really a woman because I said so. You brought this up a moment ago, Alex. There's two females who made a video saying, what was it like, just boys being silly or whatever?
Yeah, they were OnlyFans girls, and they pretended to be trans, and they got crushed by the trans community.
Saying, stop appropriating my identity and stuff like this?
I think they put like a fake
They were pretending, and again, I think we need to distinguish between
were they?
people...
Were they?
Yeah, were they pretending?
Yeah, people who are pretending and people who aren't, and the only person who gets to decide if they are is themselves.
Yeah, but if you're...
Wait, that's the point. These two females who said they were boys, so they're trans men? How dare any of
nobody
these
but them
women?
Nobody but them
no.
can say whether it's genuine or not. And I dare anybody to say that they aren't really trans.
And that's the point.
And I dare anybody to prove they aren't trans or that I'm not trans.
And that's the point. When these individuals made the video, it was trans women who insulted, attacked them, and told them to stop. And my response is, the conservatives are all saying these women are just grifting. Grifting is probably not the right word. They're making porn on OnlyFans, and they're doing this because they have a market for it. And my response is, based on gender ideology, they very well may just be transgender. You can't say not.
Are we going to have people policing and deciding whose identity is real and whose isn't? Is that what the left wants? They'll determine if it's real or if it's not.
Apparently.
Who is to say that those women's was real or not, what they were doing, the two OnlyFans models, other than them? We can't know, and I think it's wrong for us to assume. And I think in the name of tolerance and open-mindedness, we should trust that people are being genuine and honest. And I think it's wrong to try to police someone's gender identity. I take offense to that, and it's sad that a lot of that policing is coming from the left.
The interesting thing about the gender identity stuff, especially with like New York, is that race falls into the same exact category. Based on how they've legally defined gender, race is protected in the exact same way. And so, I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are on. We've got a lot of people out there who claim to be one race or another. It's actually a big component of the news cycle in politics right now. Donald Trump during the debate said, "I don't care what she is. She said she was black. She put out whatever. I can say that." And now, all of a sudden she's black, whatever. There seems to be a question. Actually,
you have Rachel Dolezal, who's transracial.
With the Kamala thing, though, I think that everybody's always agreed that like her dad was black, but she just didn't, I guess.
Her dad is Jamaican,
well, but
I believe, and her mother's from India.
And maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's that she doesn't kind of emphasize black culture. Like she doesn't identify as black. Like people know that she's black, but I guess she would put her Indian culture.
Her dad is Jamaican and her mom is Indian.
Can you be transracial though, like Rachel Dolezal? Do you think that she is valid?
I think we should defer to the science on that.
What is the science? Because you can get tan. I mean, I could get tanner. Does that make me black?
I don't know what the science is on that issue. I always, at least with gender identity, prefer to follow and defer and be in line with the science.
What about child gender hormone therapy?
I think...
Oh, wait. I just Google searched Kamala Harris' dad. It says he's Jamaican-American of Indian descent.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not... Wikipedia is saying he's not black.
Yeah, I said
Really?
He's Jamaican. He's not African-American. He's Jamaican. And I
know he's a
believe her
Marxist.
mom is Indian.
Well, it's weird that she doesn't, like, she's estranged from her dad right now. And I
His
know
name is Donald J. Harris.
That's crazy.
Donald J. Trump. Yeah.
Do you know that her mom's name is Shamala?
Well, you know what I think the weirdest thing is that, and I don't know if you talked about this on your show, but how Veep, Louis, what's her name? Julia Louis-Dreyfus. She's playing the vice president, and in the show, she becomes the 47th president because the older president is like too senile. And it's just weird that is literally happening right now. It's like it's almost like this is all planned, or like there's people in.
It's
charge
hard.
of all this.
I want to understand Biden's stance on things, but I have trouble understanding what he's trying to say, and he seems lost a lot of the time.
I like Biden now that he put on that Trump hat. No, I'm
No,
a Biden
I
supporter.
think Kamala Harris's dad is Indian Jamaican mixed.
Yeah, but I believe her mom is also Indian.
And she lives
Yeah,
in Canada.
Yeah,
and-
so she's maybe like a quarter Jamaican or whatever. I mean, you look at the photos of her dad. I pulled the photos of her dad. It's
But again, nobody can determine
Jamaican
or
Indian.
decide it except for themselves. And I think it's wrong to try to police that.
all Kamala has to do is say the N word, and then we'll know. But I haven't ever heard her say that.
that was actually a joke someone made, but it's an interesting point. Who said was it? Kevin Sorbo who said that?
Did he say that? I didn't see that. I follow
think-
Kevin. Kevin's great. But
I think he made that point that if Kamala were to say the N word, would people be offended by it? And the left got offended that he brought that up. And his point was simply like, in rap music and all of this culture, it is considered socially acceptable if you are black to use the N word. And that, I think he made an interesting question: how would they react if they would not react favorably? It would be shocking to the press and the public if she were to say such a thing.
I think so. I think people would be
Yeah.
a little offended.
I don't know though. If she was rapping, like if
I mean, if she was like rapping lyrics to a song, a white person can basically say the N word. But I'm just saying, if she walked in that barbershop and was like, "What's up, my N words?" It would. I think that would probably rub people the wrong way, because there's videos of TikTok of, of African Americans that kind of. They talk kind of like Urkel. They talk like a white guy, right? And then they say the N-word and it goes viral, and everybody in the chat's like, "Man, he's not allowed to say the N-word." I got to find the video, but it's
because
like,
if you say it like a white dude, it's bad. Or
yes, even though the guy's black in the video saying it, but he says it like Steve Urkel, and everybody's mad.
Do you remember when there was that black radio host who was on an interview, and the woman was like, "Well, you're a white man." He's like,
That was
What? No.
he's famous. That's Jesse Peterson.
No. This one was. Let me pull this one up.
I've heard that one. I thought that was Jesse Peterson.
Do you like Jesse Lee Peterson?
His content
David
is
Webb.
very interesting. Oh, okay. I thought
A
that was
CNN
Jesse
analyst. Let's play it. Let's play it. This is from 2019. Do we have the audio?
different parts of the media world, done the work so that I'm qualified to be in each one. I never considered my color the issue. I considered my qualifications the issue.
Well, David, that's a whole nother long conversation about white privilege and things that you have the privilege of doing that people of color don't have the privilege of.
How do I
And to
have
answer
the privilege of white privilege?
David, by virtue of being a white male, you have white privilege. This whole long conversation, I don't have time to get into it.
Ariva, I hate to break it to
You have to
you,
invite-
but you should have been better prepped. I'm black.
Okay, then.
You went to white privilege. This is the falsehood in this. You went immediately with an assumption. Your people, obviously, or you didn't look. You're talking to a black man
They
who
gave you
started
wrong
out in rock
information.
radio in Boston, who crossed the paths into hip hop, rebuilding one of the greatest black stations in America, and went on to work for Fox News, where I'm told apparently blacks aren't supposed to work. But yet you come with this assumption and you go to white privilege.
David,
That's
David,
actually
let me correct-
insulting.
It is, and I apologize because my people gave me wrong information. They told
Well,
me
the
they
whole
sent me some
white
information
privilege
about-
thing is
David,
insulting.
can I apologize and correct the record? I want to apologize. I was given wrong information about you, and I apologize.
But
for
based
that.
on my
But
color, you were going to something that I was part of. And just to add to it, my family background is white, black, Indian, Arawak, Irish, Scottish. I mean, it's so diverse. I'm like the UN when it comes to this. This is part of the problem with driving a narrative around a construct like white privilege. Privilege is one thing where applied wealth, economy, various social factors, but not necessarily.
This was huge because it's I mean another crack in the armor, I suppose, of this false identity ideology that they push, where she didn't actually have an argument against any of his ideas, so she attacked his race. That's racist.
Well, they're racist. I mean, that's when you make everything about race, that's racist. And I think that's just kind of the hypocrisy getting exposed right there. So, yeah, I mean, obviously,
I was going to
left
say,
is the racist
just
one.
parroting what Alex just said, I don't like to do it, but the media is constantly playing identity politics and talking about race, and I feel like dividing and balkanizing people based on racial identity and other identities, that it then predictably and inexorably leads to situations like this where race is constantly on people's mind because of the media and the far left, and then they start making assumptions based off of that because they can't stop obsessing and thinking about it, and then it leads to situations like this. So I think we should stop obsessing and constantly talking about people's identities, whether they're racial or gender, and I feel like most of the people obsessing and talking about it are on the left and in the media.
I agree. But I mean, every single one of your videos on Instagram is basically talking about your identity.
Again, I like to encourage conversation and dialogue and discourse. So on my Instagram, I try to do that. But in my everyday life, I don't go around doing it. I think the media, big media, has a larger responsibility than an individual to make sure that they are promoting healthy discourse. And I'm promoting, I think, healthy discourse. And I think the onus is on them to make sure they're doing it also, especially since they're much bigger than I am. And I feel like they don't.
Do you guys feel like at some point all of this stuff goes back in the bottle? You know, like, do we get to a point where it's going to be more like the 90s and, you know, people just aren't going to be talking about identity as much?
We didn't talk about black shows back in the 90s, right? There is the show that happens to be, it was incidental or tangential
UPN,
to
like
it.
the Wayans brothers, I think there was black.
In Living Color.
I'm saying there were black, they weren't known. Lots of shows weren't known as, I didn't say I'm watching a black show, Mom. It's called Family Matters. I watched Family Matters.
I loved Family Matters.
Yeah, man. And that's a huge point. That was TGIF.
Yeah.
You know? Was that where Urkel was?
Yeah, they weren't.
We're on
known.
Urkel.
Stefan.
Yeah,
They were
Stefan.
black shows, but that's not what we referred to them as.
Yeah,
I feel like our
Cosby's?
vernacular has changed, and we're constantly referring to it because the media and the far left demands it by their identity or their racial identity, and it's just a show. They're just a person. That person on the news is a broadcaster. We don't have to constantly talk about and dissect the fact that, oh, that's a black person. It's just a person. And so can we go back to that time? And I hope that we do. And that question you asked him was great. Are we going to go back to the 90s when people were just people and shows were just shows and we weren't obsessing over their identities?
Well, like maybe late 90s. I mean, obviously you had the LA riots, so race in the news was a huge issue. But it's a good point that In Living Color was not a black show. It was on Fox or whatever. It was like a major network comedy show, and it had a large black cast. But it also had
Jim Carrey.
Right, Jim Carrey. I think it had a couple white people on it. And then you had Family Matters, is a really good point. And I remember growing up, and never once did anyone ever say to me anything about this show is a black show. And everybody knew Urkel. It was one of the biggest shows.
I don't normally watch CNN, but I watched it leading up to the debate, and every other word was about someone's identity or their racial appearance or their gender identity or orientation. It's absolutely over the top, and I want people to just judge people based on their character. That's how I want them to judge me. That's how I want to judge them, and I don't think we should be judged by our outward appearance. And unfortunately, most of the people that seem to be doing this judging and these assumptions are on the far left.
Well, Tim, to what you said earlier, you know, is like, or is this going to be bottled back up? And I think about, like, is the pendulum going to swing back? But it wasn't that long ago, you keep on bringing up the 90s, where Kurt Cobain wore dress and it was cool, you know? So
But that was punk rock. Like that, you know, people bring this up, and it's not the idea that he was trans or anything like that. He was doing shock content. I mean, Howard Stern, that dude was nuts.
yeah,
in
he
the
dressed
90s.
in a wedding dress and on his book, and
that dude just probably got more racial slurs in his belt than
yeah, he said that he went on the View and said he didn't say the N-word. There's literally even worse than Joe Rogan's supercut of the N-word. There's like 30 times where he said the N-word, and he's just a liar. At least Joe Rogan admitted it and said this.
It's interesting who gets a pass and who doesn't.